Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Crossover Deep Dive. My name is Natasha, and with me I am delighted to have the wonderful Natalja Sticco. Hi, Natalja.
Hey Natasha, thank you for having me. You look amazing today.
That color, fantastic. It's great to also meet you in person, because obviously we've chatted online, then we did an interview online, but now to just have a 3D person. This
Exactly,
is fantastic.
agreed very much. It just means the world to me to finally have an opportunity to see you in person.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am excited to go. For some of the people that might have seen the last episode, you'll know a little bit about Natalja, and you might have seen her at our concerts. But for those who haven't, let's go back to the beginning. Natalja, can you tell us how you started singing?
Oh my God, I probably learned to sing first and then I began talking when I was very small. So I will just try to give you a little bit of highlights. So I'm originally trained as a classical pianist, and at 14 years old, let's say that's the official kickoff of my singing training, I tried to combine playing the piano with singing, and this is when I discovered that it can potentially become a career. And as I mentioned, what is very important for a singer is not to get discouraged from the very beginning.
Yes.
So, and I was very lucky. I had a coach who encouraged me to explore my voice, to try different repertoire, not only focus on opera. And later, when I tried actually for the first time to go to the musical college, I was told to no, just try something different.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was also very good advice, because only with the course of time you understand how important it is for you, and that when you try something else and you still want to pursue your dream, that means that's probably a good profession to shoot for. Because when you're young, you're not very familiar with the backside of the profession. You just think it's being fancy there, standing with a beautiful dress and beautiful makeup. But unfortunately, it's not even close to that. And I would also say it's very important to leave when you don't have actually any work or any projects in the pipeline. And for you, it's very important to understand how not to lose your mind when you just don't have any work. And this is what you learn the hard way.
Yeah. So you had a pretty good, well-rounded experience growing up, both just as a pianist, that's a good experience to start.
Exactly.
Then as a vocalist, and then, in specialty beyond music, have a life, have some experience you can bring to your songs as well. That's another really important thing.
Exactly.
So you kind of alluded to the music business sometimes being difficult. I think one of the things that I admire about you is that there's people that kind of wait for opportunities, and I feel like you've created a lot of your own opportunities. So can you share a little bit about, I guess the desire to do that and some of the shows and different things that you've put together yourself?
Sure. First of all, I'm very lucky because I have some people doing work for me behind the scenes.
Yeah.
In particular, my husband, and that's probably, I wouldn't say one of the main keys of success, but this is what is important.
Yeah.
Because for a singer, often you're too focused on making a better version of yourself, you're too focused on mastering new music, you're too focused on attending lessons, on listening to lots of recordings. But actually the work behind the scene is more important, and especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Because you probably know yourself, it's not only the talent, it's not only the hard work that matters, but it's also luck, and it's also often the role of marketing.
Oh, yes.
And that's the big plus in my current situation. So I have my husband doing all this dirty work behind the scenes, which I admire and which I appreciate a lot. And thank God I have somebody dedicated.
Yeah.
And when it comes to projects, right, so my husband was actually the first one to inspire me to look into the crossover genre. Because before that I was very much opera oriented, and the only other genre I was trying apart from opera was Russian pop. That's all. So yeah, I mean, he expanded my look into that, and actually Requiem for the Soldier was the hit that I first recorded like during COVID times, and this was my first time when we tried doing something else apart from opera. Then another trick which we started to implement, I'm sorry we're giving out some of the secrets here.
No, that's good.
When you're an opera singer, don't focus only to inspire the operatic crowd with your singing. Don't try to look for recognition from those people, because unfortunately barely who from this crowd is trying to help you.
Yeah.
They are looking for you as a competitor, and they're looking for a way either to learn from you or to put a knife on your back. So this is why another thing which we started doing, we started to bring opera apart from this operatic community, and doing concerts for the VA, doing concerts for the people who were never exposed to the opera, and actually even explaining opera in a more general language. So what I mean by that, you don't take one opera, you take multiple pieces, you piece it together in a concert form, and you tell the story just based on different composers, different areas, and just make people guess. So not giving them any translation or any idea of what we are doing.
Making them feel.
Exactly, and this is a fun fact, because after that the people come and say, oh, were you transferring this emotion during your air? It's like, yes, that's it. Like, I didn't speak any Italian, but I understood what you were trying to convey. So regarding other projects, I was also collaborating with a jazz pianist, with B.K. Davis. So this was my first big experience with jazz, and what I liked about that, it's very spontaneous. It includes lots of improvisation.
Yes.
It's not going by the book. And whenever you rehearse with jazz pianists, the end product which you actually expose to the listeners is not even close to what you rehearsed.
Very true.
Yes, and this is what I liked about that. It brings some different personality out of you, and it makes you literally enjoy the music and not be worried about what the composer wanted me to say. So that was also a good stuff to do. And probably the latest, what I will be trying to do, it's a big secret, but I will dig deep into the old American songbook.
Oh, I love
I will do some musical theater, and all I want to do is just actually practice this belting, if you know what I'm talking about. So bringing your chest voice as high as up, and try to adjust it for another rep, because now when I do crossover or musical theater, everybody hears it's an opera singer. So my new experiment will be to introduce something totally new in terms of my voice and make people listen to it like it's not an opera singer. So it's just an experiment. I want to give it a shot.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm interested, for people listening, and not to put you on the spot, but can you explain some of the differences with the opera sound? Obviously, it's like more open, right? What are some of the things that you think of now as you're learning the new one? Are you comparing them and saying, okay, this is a difference between, you said obviously the chest voice.
Yeah.
What is another thing that you can notice is different?
What I have noticed is just how you manipulate registration, right? And with opera singers, what I learned, right? Yes, there are two laryngeal registers. It's the chest voice versus head voice, but there are many acoustical registers in between. It's mixed voice, it's middle voice, it's the so-called vowel register, it's the whistle range, which turned out to be I also have, which I was doubting.
Do you really do that? Oh,
yeah, I mean, I was thinking I don't have it, but turned out to be I do, but I don't go very high with that. It just helps me to have.
So cool.
So this is the trick, right? And with opera singers, you are working with the vowel when it comes to switching from the registers.
Yeah.
While with pop singers, for the majority of your time, yes, you use this belt, the so-called chest, right? Like you add like a little bit of the mix but you just don't use your head laryngeal register that much. You use it just for the very, very top. This is like, if you look at that very basic way, yeah, in pop, your main working register is chest.
Yeah.
Laryngeal. And when you talk about classics, it's still the head for the most of the part, even though you should be ready and you should understand how to use your chest.
Yeah.
So this is probably very, very basic understanding what I got. I'm still learning. So if somebody disagrees, feel free to just post your comment. I'm totally open for conversations, because I'm not a pop coach. This is my next stage of trying to figure it out.
I think it's good, because a lot of times I think when it's just singers, we get together and we chat and we just like kind of take for granted that some people know. And, there's a lot of things I don't know. And I'm sure for the listeners, it's the same. It's like, you're like, what is chest? What is? And chest is more of that talking register, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense for pop.
Yes.
You're projecting a lot less. So it makes sense that you're staying there. Whereas opera, you've got to go far. So we've got to get everything kind of working together.
And
so it's fascinating.
Yeah. And also what I would like to know, there is one thing which is common both for opera and for pop. You know what it is? You'll probably guess.
Breathing.
Breathing, yes. When it comes to just pure performance.
Oh, the emotion.
Yes,
the character.
telling the story, that's it.
Yeah.
It's just the means how you use it. It's just the register you use it, and it's just the vowel, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. With pop, you more speak on the pitch. While with the opera, you try to engage your resonators. While in pop, you just talk on the pitch.
Yeah.
So this is the main difference if you just explain for a beginner who was never introduced to, a voice technique or anything like that.
Well, I love what you talked about there. First of all, you have your village, so you have your husband. That's very important.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm sure there are examples of people that have made it on their own, but that's few and far between. We all need those supporters that are going to get us there. And then also the avenues, like the single Requiem for a Soldier, it's about, you know, the military. It's about these lost lives that we're remembering. And that's important to you because, you know, you have that connection to the military as well. So, like, kind of finding the things within you that resonate, and then how do you now go to those audiences, you know, because those people will relate to you in a way that they wouldn't just some random opera singer. They have a connection with you.
Yes.
So,
and let's be realistic, right? From all my opera singer friends, barely who is very honest with you. I'm very lucky. I have a couple of friends who made it in the industry, who are friends who will always help. And I also experienced backstabbing, of course, and I also experienced the so-called trying to harm you, trying to hurt you, but by giving you the wrong feedback. So this is why, yes, as Natasha, you figured it out, it's for a singer, and I think for any person of an artistic profession, it's still important to get recognized. And of course, right, getting recognition from the industry is one thing, but having your own audience which admires you, which inspires you, this is probably even more important than getting a good feedback from a critic often. Because then you understand why you're fighting for. And when you just go for, oh, I need to impress my operatic colleagues, you're just being very obsessed of not being the right version of yourself, but singing as they want you to sing for writing you a good comment. So this is what I think it's still very crucial to find your own way of projecting emotion in your own audience who will really appreciate the you, how you are, not the you who you want to be just because you want to impress a critic.
And each critic is different, right? So you're going to have one that loves one singer, and then they're going to hear, you know, they're going to like you because of that or not. So if you chase that, it's very hard to find fulfillment. But you mentioned, you know, like bringing in different people to opera. So obviously that's kind of your background. So if somebody is intimidated by opera, they don't want to give it a chance, what would you say to them? Or would you suggest, like, you know, like you're saying, scenes maybe instead of a full opera? What would be something you'd say?
So first of all, what I say, it just probably you attended a wrong production. And unfortunately, I know nowadays opera world is making attempts to bring in a younger audience there. They're modernizing some of the performances. They're making it cinematic. They are broadcasting it in the movie theaters. So they want looks. They want model-looking girls and like six-pack abs guys, right?
It's true.
And unfortunately, opera is not about that. Unfortunately, opera, it is the voice, it is the emotions, and it is lots of technique, lots of hard work behind, right? So that's why I'm saying, as much as modern opera world is trying to commercialize it with the looks, they are not doing opera a favor, right? This is number one. And unfortunately, when you come to listen to the old recordings, unless you're a professional opera singer looking for specific things for yourself to improve, for a person who is totally unfamiliar with that, it's also very difficult to understand these old recordings, right? So that's why what I would advise is, yes, of course, try to maybe attend concerts, try to attend like smaller, more intimate concerts, right? When you actually can experience it right nearby, then you can see how the person moves, how the person projects, how the poser emotion is, right? And when you go to an opera house, try still to find some production which is authentic. What I mean by authentic, so if it's Turandot, it's Turandot how Zeffirelli staged it, right? When you see the costumes. So you don't go to that as a movie to see, you know, some thriller or like a detective or something. No, just go there to have experience. Oh, you know, I want to see how things were looking back in the 17th or 18th century. So this is you might consider me old school and everything, even though there are good modern productions. But if you want to understand what it is, try to find classical production with good feedback, with good singers who have a good solid technique, who can project, who can emotionate. And yeah, just open your heart. This is probably the key to that.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. So when I went to Italy just for like 2 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks to study Italian, and we got to see an opera, so of course we're all excited. And they had these cameras the whole time, and they were kind of blocking some of the views, and we assumed, oh, they must be recording it, like there's a purpose of this. And then at the end, we realized that was just the staging, was to have the cameras there. It was absolutely not being recorded. And it ruined the experience. You were just like, whose idea was this? No offense to whoever created that. But like you're saying, the focus was then lost on what was really happening because you were so confused, like, what are they filming this for, you know? And it ended up being nothing. It took away from the story. So you just seem like you want people to experience authentic opera.
Exactly. And plus, another thing I want to note, it's the mics. And of course, when you're recording, right, when you're looking on that in the cinema, I think it's for those who already know what it is about, who want to just enjoy it for one more time. But for the people who want to understand, that's not the best how to make them introduced. Because unfortunately, yes, this is also physics of that. It has not to be mic'd. It has to be produced in the perfect acoustics, and it has to go exactly the way it went, like centuries ago.
Yeah.
Because nowadays our world changed, right? Like we have noisy streets outside, and our ear is trained for that. And when you're like exposed to something which originally was staged in a world which had different volumes, right? And like this is probably what people heard, and that was the loudest thing they ever heard, right? And this is why they reacted differently on that, right? And nowadays, yes, so this is the trick. You have to actually find with no technical amplification of all that. Yes, when you're like it, when you're more exposed to that, of course, enjoy whatever you want to enjoy, right? But the very first kickoff is, you feel it live, you feel the vibrations, right? Like when you see the goosebumps and everything, you can't get it from a video. You can for some genius singers, they exist. I'm aiming at this level, but still work in progress. But when you hear it live, it's a different experience. Then people emote.
Yeah.
Then they feel these emotions, then their body responds to that, which is very difficult to get through a screen, unfortunately.
No, what you're saying there, and it's kind of like active listening and just taking the things away. Because when you think about pop concerts, you know, like I enjoy Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour is this huge magic, but you're not really getting that same experience, right? There's a lot of noise going on. There's multiple things, where when it's opera, you're really focused on that voice, that pure sound that's happening right in front of you.
And I'll tell you even more, some of the audience members who I encountered, they were coming to me in tears. Not that I'm that good, even though I'm aiming for excellence.
You are very good. But yes.
I'm aiming for excellence. I'm just undervaluating myself a bit. But this is what they told. They said they never could imagine that being that brilliant and that touching. And there are people with, let's say, no big degrees, no huge careers, right?
Yeah.
It's people who grew up in the hoods. Who, right, some of them probably did some shady stuff, right? I don't want to throw names around, but they are touched. And if you can resonate with those people, with their soul, that means you're doing something which is valuable, right?
Yeah.
And even I think I was on one podcast, so it was a comedian who was doing the podcast. He just asked me to squeeze out a couple of notes. And he was in tears after like 6 seconds. Like, oh my God, what am I doing? So yeah, this is probably, that's it. And it's physics, it's magic, it's energy, whatever you do. But yes, unfortunately, the very first exposure has to be live. Like big screens, it's for later. It's for more advanced stuff when you are going all in.
Yeah. So if you guys can, definitely go see live performances to start with. And then, like you mentioned, start maybe with some scenes to get your feet wet. I have a question. So for younger musicians, and I think we talked a little bit off camera, it can be difficult, especially now there's a lot of different courses, there's a lot of different things drawing your attention. Would you have any advice to someone that just like hears you and they're like, great, I want to try singing? Would you give them any advice?
First advice is probably trusting your gut. What I mean by trusting your gut is when you are a beginner, you will have different opinions. You will have different people chasing you, especially if you're talented, trying to give you feedback, which for a beginner who can't filter, is often not that helpful.
Yeah.
And is even demolishing. And when I say about trusting your gut, the gut will help you to find your coach or your teacher, or I would even say partner, even a pianist whose opinion you trust. Because yes, you can be as smart and self-sufficient, self-dedicated, but you still need a backbone to rely on. You still need a person who you can come and ask, how was it? And you will receive an honest answer.
Yeah.
And this is why you need your gut. Because when it comes to voice teachers, they all use different vocabulary. Let's be realistic, some people are more technical. They need to understand the certain way their throat, their breath, their diaphragm is operating. They need the names of the register. Another person just needs is like, open your mouth, like, and stick your tongue out and like smell a flower. And it works for some of the people because people are so this is my main advice. Trust your gut and figure out the way how you comprehend information. I don't know, there are even people who get information out of the books and it works. Not me, unfortunately, right? So what I found for me, I have this mixture of the way how I am comprehending information. So yes, I worked with coaches who explain by their own opinion. I have a teacher who explains me scientifically, right? And this is how I built my whole puzzle. And yes, I trust my gut, and I advise you to do the same. And always look for a way to learn something new, because you will be never ready. And you will always have a bad mood, bad days, and you'll have to deal with that. You have to move on. Yep. Because the number of times when you're going to sing in perfect health and perfect technique is probably close to zero. Yes. So learn to deal with the hard part of this profession. And what I mean by that, be ready to sing during colds, during periods when you don't have any mood to do that, when you're exhausted, when you are down, right? When you broke up with your boyfriend or everything. Yes, it will happen. And just learn to love the periods when you don't have any gigs, when you don't have the work pipeline lined up, because this is how you grow. You grow actually by figuring out what to do with this time when you're not actively performing. And if you're not drinking your mind off, if you're not losing your mind, if you're appreciating, and if you are finding good things to work or to improve and learn your rap, record, find another coach just to go for an opinion. Yeah, that's the most important, because the performances itself is probably 5-10% of all your career.
It's everything crazy, else really. Is
yes, and pretty much months of no work, months of self-improvement, months of going back and forward and doubts whether this is the right path or not. So learn to love it.
Yeah. The journey, not just
the journey, yes, exactly. The path, right? Not the end result.
That's a tough lesson, but it's a good one to do. And then my last question for you, you've kind of already alluded to it, but can you tell us a little bit about things you want to do in the future?
All right. So number one, I am the headline of the Italian Festival in Los Angeles. This is a very great event in October. So the organizers of the festival, they're trying to reanimate that, because it was huge before COVID. Then COVID killed that, unfortunately, and it will be the third year they are making it work. So I want to help out as much as I can. And Italian culture, yes, part of that is opera. So again, I want to make sure it's not mic'd this time. Yeah. So again, it will be the authentic experience for the people who show up. And just, again, going back to the mission of making more people introduced, because the audience is not real operatic people, it's just people who want to have fun in Hollywood in October and get exposed to Italian culture. Second part of the experience, I'm still working on Carmen role. So I'm mastering that. This is my own.
That's an exciting one to do.
That's my own try out how fast can I master a role. So I'm working with a coach in Boston to make this happen. And third one, I will try myself in pop and musical theater. So as I mentioned, it will be more of the chest voice work, belting work, and just giving it a shot to test how much I can alter and adjust my voice to sing totally different rap, not sounding operatic. So there are 3 areas of focus, and in the end of the month, I'm doing what I love doing, what I adore doing, so singing for the veterans once again for the VA home. And another one, it's probably a surprise, it's the 5th one. Did I count properly? There will be some projects going on with the Boston Anthem singers. So for all of you who are fans of hockey, who know, you shouldn't be a Bruins fan, yeah, but you probably know the Boston Anthem singer Todd. And there will be some projects with him.
Exciting.
So classical crossover, but I won't just name the exact things we'll be doing. I just want to keep it a little secret.
Well, that sounds like you're going to be expanding a lot of interesting ways, so we'll keep following you, and we'll also have you on some concerts coming up, which is really exciting. We have the privilege, because now we're in studio together, of getting Natalja to perform for us. So, Natalja, can you tell us about this piece? I've already forgot the pronunciation of the composer, so I'm not going to say that, but it's like Angry Husband, so tell us a little bit about the story of this piece.
Of course, I will try to. So first of all, for those of you who still are opera fans, you probably know the great Yelena Obraztsova. That's the Russian mezzo-soprano, who for me is an icon. For me, from this particular voice fach, I consider her to be one of the best. And actually that piece was the first which drew my attention to her as a singer. It wasn't opera, it was this particular piece. And it's composed by Verstovsky. The lyrics author is Pushkin. However, there is the whole story behind the scenes that it's not really Pushkin, it's some other stuff. Pushkin just incorporated that, but unfortunately I'm not a linguist to tell you 100%, so we'll go with the story, which is Pushkin wrote the lyrics. And it was inspired by the life of the gypsies. Often, like gypsy is obliged to marry, not a gypsy girl is not obliged often to marry just somebody who was picked up by her family, not by who she really loved.
Yeah.
So this particular piece is about an older gypsy who already had a good life, family life, and she is dedicating it to her older husband, saying, "Oh, I have a younger guy, you're old, you're angry." And this is for my husband. It's not personal. It was a piece I found.
Good disclaimer.
Yeah, just disclaimer. Yeah, when I was a teen, this is what drew my attention to Yelena Obraztsova. Yes, it's just the culture, and it's just this. I would say that she finally experiences the time when she's in love, when she's not forced to marry somebody the parents chose for her.
Yeah.
And she's just going all in and teasing the old husband. And yeah, so she's like, I had fun with this young guy and everything. And like, you're old and just go away. So that's a very brief story of that. Right?
Perfect.
And it's in Russian. This is my native language, one of the native languages, because I'm trilingual from birth. Like, it's also Latvian and English, but...
Oh, wow, nice. Perfect. Well, thank you again, Natalja, for being
very
here.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me. Anytime.
It's just a delight. And everyone, please stay tuned for The Angry Husband.
ласкала его я в ночной тишине, как смеялась